All right. It seems that everyone has completed the quiz. And so we're going to start. We're going to, first of all, start out. I'd like to start off by asking, before you all took this quiz, was there any level of anxiousness?
A little bit.
Okay. Pooja says a little bit. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Dalal says kind of. All right. Gotcha. All right. And so everybody else, I guess, had no level of anxiousness. Everybody was totally comfortable. Interesting. So, Dr. Pooja, tell me your level of that slight anxiousness. Why did you have that?
I wasn't sure if I would know all the questions that are going to be asked because we've just started studying. So we haven't
Okay.
covered all the topics yet. So I was kind of nervous about that.
Gotcha. So it's basically the uncertainty of the content, not knowing if you knew the content.
Yeah.
So gotcha. Okay. All right. And so Dr. Vika, you felt totally calm throughout the exam, throughout that test?
Not comfortable.
You said not comfortable?
Yeah, because many things I didn't know.
Okay. Now, before you actually took the quiz, did you have any kind of nervousness at all?
Yeah,
Why?
like a doctor also said, because we just started to learn.
Gotcha. So it's just basically that little uncertainty about, do I know enough, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And so I'm assuming, Dr. Everett, you had no anxiety whatsoever, right?
Sort of, but each time as a first time.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to share my screen with you and show you the results. So each one of you can actually see the results. So let's go ahead and share screen. All right. All right. Everyone should see my screen okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So without any further ado, here are the results of that. And as you can see, we have two people that scored 50%. So because you both scored 50%, you both will get 1 hour of free tutorial to be used. Now, who was the Kimberly?
It's Pooja, doctor.
Oh, okay. Let me put that down. Make sure I got you. Okay, so Pooja. All right. And what's the other? What's that? Lana?
Lana, yes, doctor.
Which one is Lana? Oh, is that
Lana.
yeah, but what?
Halal. Yeah, I just, I'm sorry. When I joined the meeting, I just realized it's my husband's name. That's why. But my name is Lana. Yeah.
So wait, what name is on the screen right now for you?
On the screen, you mean for the meeting or?
Yes, yeah, for the meeting right now. Which name is on the screen?
I think it Talal. Let me
Talal.
guess. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Talal,
All right.
yeah.
So
Talal
Talal and
Mujalla.
Pooja. All right,
Mhm.
perfect. Okay. So guess what? So congratulations, first of all, on winning that 1 hour. You can use that whenever you want. All you'll need to do is email Elaine, let her know when you would like to use that 1 hour. I would suggest you using it close to your test date, so that way you can access materials or understand things that you may not know. Does that make sense?
Yes, doctor.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, all right. So let's talk about this for a second. So today, the whole purpose of us meeting today is to, and a lot of people, this is the thing, we're going to be talking about overcoming test anxiety today, overcoming test anxiety. And some people think, oh, you know what? I'm not anxious. I'm never worried or nervous about a test. But that's only about 10% of the population. Do you know that over 90% of the people in the world, whether they're in the elementary school level or the doctorate level, they actually get nervous before an exam? And so what we want to do today is show and look at some of the things that happen during that, okay? So what is our plan for today? Our plan for today is pretty simple. One, we're going to identify any fears that you have during testing. That's the first thing, okay? Then we're going to look at what you're currently doing to address those fears. Like, how are you handling a situation? Like, if you get nervous during a test or before a test, like, what are you doing, okay? This one right here, we've already done. I call it throwing you into the fire, okay? This is what we just completed. So throwing you into the fire is basically giving you a test. If you noticed, I gave you a quiz. You had no idea what the quiz was going to be about. All you knew is the quiz was going to be timed, and there was some reward for you if you did well on the quiz. So does that alone, when you hear something like that, does that give you a certain level of anxiety or nervousness because you're like, okay, this means something? Does anybody feel like that?
I do.
Okay. Dr. Edwards says yes. Okay. So, and that's a lot of times that's what happens is whenever there's something that's put on that test, meaning that there's a reward or there's some type of penalty if you don't perform well, then that gives us a little nervousness, right? So we're going to talk about better, ways to handle that anxiety, or if you have a little nervousness during the test, how to handle that, okay? And then finally, at the end, we're going to celebrate your success because we know that you are going to be successful, all right? So let's jump right into it. Now, what is test anxiety or test pressure? Now, most people think, well, you know what? I just started having this anxiety when I started preparing for my INBDE exam or this doctorate exam. This is when I started having. But do you know most people have test anxiety? I've had test anxiety since they were young. Even when it starts at whenever you're talking about competing or anything like that, they start generating this anxiety. Now, has anybody ever had nervousness or anxiety for a test, like say in high school or before? Can anybody remember anything like that?
Yeah, me a lot.
Oh, you did. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you know you were having the anxiety?
Yeah, like in the morning of the test, I'm just throw up every time. Yeah, I feel like his stomach hurting. It was a lot.
Yes. So a lot of this, that's what they said, a lot of this starts, at an early age, and then it kind of carries on because we don't have a good mechanism to deal with it. Now, believe it or not, what you just described, those things you described, is something we've talked about before. It's called the sympathetic nervous system, right? And for some of you who've already been a part of this class, you all already know what the sympathetic nervous system is, right? So in the sympathetic nervous system, what happens to your heart rate?
Increase?
Yeah, the heart rate's going to go up. What happens to the blood pressure?
Increase, I guess.
That's going to increase too. What happens to your digestion?
Low.
That's right, it decreases. So guess what? So just kind of like Dr. Talal was just talking about, is that you think about that, the digestive part, the throwing up, the stomach not feeling right, all of these sympathetic nervous system things are things that can affect your test taking, okay? And we know this is fight or flight. Now, believe it or not, a little nervousness is not bad for the test. It actually helps you release some chemicals that actually help you to think. But it's when you get to the point that sympathetic nervous system is out of control, is when you start to have problems focusing, okay? So there are 3 types of anxiety, test anxiety, all right? This is important. We call these the pre, the present, and the post. The pre, the present, and the post. So Dr. Pooja, what do you think I'm talking about when I say the pre, the present, and the post?
Before the test, during the test, and after the test.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. And Dr. Vicker, do you think that can you have anxiety for all three? Do you think that's possible to be able to have anxiety for all three, or do you just have anxiety for one or two? What do you think?
I think there is different levels for
Yes.
all that parts. I think that the post is the lowest on anxiety because you already done this.
Right. Very good. I love that. That's right. That's right. So I totally agree with that. So what Dr. Vicker was saying, yeah. So after you've done the test, you may still have a little anxiety because you don't know how you did on the test, but you are relieved that the test is over. Is that how a lot of you feel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so let's jump right into it. All right, so let's talk about the pre first. This is just like Dr. Vicker was saying, this is before the test. What is the anxiety, or what does that anxiety do before the test? First of all, if you have what we call the pre-test anxiety, then that's going to affect your study time. Your study time. Dr. Rita, what is that? How could that affect your study time if you're stressed?
It can distract me from studying.
That's right. Yes. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever been anxious about something and it kind of like you can't really focus and your study time is affected?
Yes. So I cannot focus and I cannot like remember everything. So yeah,
Absolutely.
the information doesn't go to my brain, you know.
So guess what? Guess what you just said? It also affects your information retention. I love that. That's right. Absolutely. And that's what happens during the pre-test anxiety. It affects your study times. You can't really retain the information like you should. And believe it or not, it can affect your mood, because what happens is if you are not retaining that information, you're not getting the best out of your study time, then you start to you could get a little grouchy. The people that you love may notice that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then they're wondering, what did they do? And they hadn't done anything. So we need to figure out a way, right, to handle or address this. So does anybody have right now, anybody who's ever studied, suffered from the pre-test anxiety, do you all have any things that you do right now to address that or to handle that?
So I also have the same problem, doctor. Like I start to procrastinate when I'm not like, when I get too anxious.
Yes.
So what I do is I usually try to like read a chapter from a book, like a storybook or some nonfiction book, and then I get into reading so that it reduces my anxiety a little bit because I've already been reading something. So it calms me down a little bit.
Very good. Okay. So you do something to kind of calm you down before you study.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. That is a wonderful, wonderful technique. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
I usually take a walk in the park. So yeah, without the devices, without anything. Yeah.
Just again to try to calm you down, relax a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Very nice. Very good. So let me show you a few things that you could use also. Let's talk about some of those. Okay. So the first thing I want you to understand is that whenever you study, there's this quote. The quote says, "Those who learn what work for those who learn why." Did you all catch that? Those who learn the what work for those who learn the why. What does that mean? Who can tell me what that statement means?
Those people who try to like learn what is there in the syllabus usually work for people who try to question the syllabus.
So typically those who learn what are memorizing, right?
Yeah.
Those who learn why
Or
understand.
understanding it.
Yes. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah,
Yes,
that,
doctor.
All
Yes.
right. So whenever you're studying, the very first thing is that I always tell individuals, whenever you begin to study as if you are a detective. Okay? You're a detective. And your whole goal as a detective, Dr. Edward, what is a detective? What is the goal of a detective?
uh, to figure out who is a criminal.
There you go. Exactly. In this case, we're talking about the IMDE. So the criminal, or what we're trying to
There
figure
is a-
out, is the questions. Everybody follow me? So
Yes.
in studying, the mindset before you even study, your goal in this thing is to find out, what am I studying? How is this going to apply to the IMBDE exam? And why is this important? Okay. Whenever you're studying, a lot of times when we study, we'll just pick up a book. We'll pick up a book, we'll start reading, we'll look at a PowerPoint, we'll start reading, but we don't have any questions in our mind before we start. Let's think about this for a second. If we were saying we're going to be studying today, we're going to be studying anticoagulants. Okay? This is the topic that we're going to be studying. This is an example. If we know we're going to be studying anticoagulants, the first thing you do on a piece of paper, you write down a few things. You write down is, what are anticoagulants? I'm going to just put AC for anticoagulants. What are anticoagulants? How do they work? Okay. Why are they important in dentistry? And if you notice something, I write these questions before I study. Does everybody see that? Now,
Yes.
as you begin to study and you've already written the questions, a detective is going to do what?
Look for those questions.
Exactly. So as a detective now, you're going to start studying and you're going to be looking for these questions. Now, let me ask you a question. Does that seem a little bit more exciting than just reading a book and not knowing what you're looking for?
Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
Good. Now, guess what? The brain, whenever the brain is excited, it tends to focus more. So now you have questions that you're focusing on because you're looking for that particular content in your study material. That's one way to help you focus and help to relieve some of that pre-test anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It
Yes.
does.
Okay, good, perfect. Now, the second thing is set a schedule. Believe it or not, now, the schedule, believe it or not, can sometimes be your friend. And I love to say this. It could be your, all right, let's put it here. Let me go back. So your schedule can both be your friend. Where's this thing? Here we go. There we go. So I always say this, your schedule can be your friend or your enemy. And why I say this is, a good study schedule is one that is not too strict that you cannot follow it. I've seen people put together schedules and it's like, okay, you only have 24 hours in a day and they're trying to say they're going to be studying 18 hours. That's impossible. A good study schedule is going to give you time to relax, time to eat, time to spend time with family, and then put in your study time within there. Okay. The reason a schedule is good to help relieve the pre-test anxiety, because it gives you goals. It gives you things that you can say, okay, by this day, I'm going to accomplish this. Now, you don't have to do an entire week schedule. Sometimes I tell people just to do a 2-day schedule, just 2 days, and do them every 2 days. So in your 2-day schedule, you're going to put in there, okay, this is what I plan to accomplish in those 2 days. And then you set up a schedule just like this, and you may just set up a schedule just for Monday and Tuesday. All right. And then once you've accomplished that, you're going to feel good about accomplishing those 2 days. If you can't do a whole week, just try 2 days. Does everybody follow me?
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Now, this will really, really keep you on track. Even though I know most of you are already in the class and we do our own schedules, I would say make sure. Now, does anybody already set up a study schedule?
That's
Any of you?
one of my problem. I just try to make a schedule for like the whole syllabus, and I can't follow it, and that's make me feel down. But this is a good idea, like maybe just for 2 days.
Yes, I love what you said. What you said was beautiful. Is that you said like sometimes if you, and I've seen this, when people set a schedule and say they kind of deviate or they fall off the schedule a little bit, then it kind of gets them down, and it kind of can raise the level of anxiety. So that's why I'm glad you noticed this, is that, yeah, don't try to do a whole week. Try to do a 2-day schedule. And if a 2-day schedule doesn't work, try 1 day. Do the 1 day, and then you slowly build up to where you can add more days. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Good. Everybody, any questions on that? Setting a schedule, okay? Now, the next thing, believe it or not, what is the purpose of the hippocampus? Does anybody know the purpose of the hippocampus? What's the function of the hippocampus? It is learning and memory. Everybody see that? Now, if you ever forget that, guess what? An easy way to remember that is, you see the end of this word is campus, C-A-M-P-U-S. What do you go to a campus for? A college campus. Why do you go to a college campus?
Gain
On
knowledge.
learning.
Learning and memory. Does that make sense? So now, whenever you think about the hippocampus, think about, okay, this is the part of my brain that's responsible for learning and memory. Now, I have a question. Would you all, if I told you I had a magic pill and I could give it to you, and everything that you read, you'd never forget, and not only would you never forget it, but you'll always be able to bring it back to the front of your brain whenever you need it. You'll be able to use it at any time. Wouldn't that be a wonderful pill?
I'd love to have it.
well, unfortunately, we don't have that right now. But what we do have is we have some things that have been shown to stimulate the hippocampus, to actually stimulate your ability to learn and to retain information. Now, believe it or not, some of you may have already heard about this, but things like pumpkin seeds, right? Pumpkin seeds have been known to stimulate your hippocampus. I've told a lot of dentists and other students in our program that when they're going to their testing, right, they need to take what I call brain food. Let me say that again, brain food, things that are going to help you remember information, okay, help you to recall information. This brain food are things like pumpkin seeds. That's one of the things. Now, if you are during your pre-testing time and you're trying to just make sure that you're focused, that there's not cloudiness in the brain, then you want to, now, if you're vegan or vegetarian, obviously, fish would not be in your diet. But if you do eat fish, these are some of the fish that have also been known to be better in terms of brain food, okay? Halibut, herring, mackerel, things like that. These are things that can also help.
Okay, what
The
about
grains
omega-3
and nuts.
pills?
Let me go ahead. Can you say that again?
What about omega-3 pills? Vitamin omega-3.
Say it one more time.
Omega-3, vitamin omega-3
yes.
pills.
Omega-3. Yes. So if you notice that most of these fish, these fish are high in what? omega-3. So
Okay, got it.
yeah, so that's right. So some people, some people just take the oil, they'll do the fish oil. But these fish are high in omega-3 fatty acids, which are very good at helping relieve or remove antioxidants from the body. And again, when you're doing this, it's going to make the brain, it's going to make you think a lot clearer. Okay. Now, let's just say, you're thinking about, okay, what can I snack on, right? So this is when you got the flaxseed, the peanut butter. Now, keep in mind, the peanut butter, when we talk about peanut butter, it is unprocessed peanut butter. All right. Does everybody know what I mean by that? Unprocessed. So a lot of times you go to the store, you'll see peanut butter. It might have a lot of sugar in it. It may have other things. The best type of peanut butter is the peanut butter that hadn't been any non-additives. We're talking about no sugars or things added to it. It's just basically peanut butter. Okay. Walnuts, pumpkin seeds, oatmeal. These are all things that have been shown to be helpful for the brain. Okay. Now, what to avoid? Oh my goodness. If you really want your brain to be cloudy and you don't want to focus, eat a lot of trans fat, the refined sugars, caffeine, alcohol, too many animal products. All of these things right here are things that have worked the opposite way, have the opposite effect on the brain. Okay. So these things you definitely either want to remove totally from your diet while you are preparing for your exam, or definitely reduce them considerably. Any questions on that?
No questions.
Okay, good, perfect. So that is the pre. This is part of the pre, right? Now, has anybody ever heard of the Pomodoro technique?
I actually use it.
You good. Who said that?
It's Pooja.
Pooja, perfect. So now, are the rest of you familiar with this technique?
Nope.
Okay, let me tell you about the
No.
Pomodoro technique. So we've advised, we've worked with a lot of different students from different areas. And some of the things that we see is that a lot of students suffer from what we call ADHD, right? Where they have this really hard time focusing during the study period, like how to really focus. And so this technique basically says that what you want to do is that you want to break up your study period in these little time frames, all right? What we call basically 25 minutes. So what you do basically is you study, you set a timer, and then at 25 minutes, when that timer goes off, you stop, okay? Now, as soon as that timer goes off, I know you may be thinking, oh, I need to keep going. I'm on a roll right now. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second. But typically it's set on a 25-minute timer. You take a 5-minute break, okay? And that's what you do consistently throughout your study period. 25-minute, 5-minute break, okay? Now, after you complete 4 of those 25-minute sessions, if you notice 4 of those 25-minute sessions will give you 100 minutes, then you can enjoy a 15 to 30-minute break. So it's like you're rewarding yourself. Now, what we teach at MDI Prep is this. It's similar to the Pomodoro technique. And you do the 25-minute study periods. But we also tell you, don't study when you don't feel like it. Let me say that again. That's pretty deep. Don't study if you don't feel like it. Why do I say that?
Because I'm not ready enough. Just I'm not in the mood.
You're
to
not in the
study.
mood. Good.
You should enjoy studying.
And if you study when you're not in the mood, do you think you're going to retain a lot of that information?
No,
That's better.
I just feel like
So
someone
a lot of
pushed
times
me
when
for
we study,
study.
would you say?
It looks like someone just pushed me and forced me for study. That's
That's
why.
right. That's right. And guess what? When you study and you're not in the mood and you don't retain the information, that builds a level of frustration, because here's what happens. You think and you say to yourself, wait a minute, I know I studied this and I don't remember it. And now you're frustrated, which increases your anxiety. Does that make sense? So always study, one, when you're in the mood, when you feel like it. Now, the problem is that people are going to be thinking, I need to be studying every day, right? But guess what? If you study when you feel like it and you use the Pomodoro technique when you're doing it, you're going to be a lot more efficient in what you retain. Does everybody got that?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, now we get to what we call the present day. The present day. Now, what I like to do now, hold on 1 second, is we're going to take a 2-minute break, just a 2-minute break, coming back at 10 o'clock, okay? At 10 our time. So just take a
Okay.
2-minute break, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's our 2-minute break. So tell me why you think I gave you all a 2-minute break.
To relax brain.
Yes, to relax the brain. Absolutely. Now, if you think about that, now what you're going to be doing is you're going to be compartmentalizing what you just thought about, what we just went over, right? So you're going to be compartmentalizing that piece. So if we can just recap, let's see here, Dr. All right, Talal, tell us, can you recap for us what we just went over in that first piece?
Okay, so we're starting. We before we start to study, we have to ask ourselves like what, how, and why,
Mhm.
and that will be more exciting for us to return the information and just look for it. We have to set a schedule that's more comparable, like to yourself, like start every 1 day until you just build up on every 2 days, every 3 days, and just go on and
Mhm.
stick to it. and it's to stimulate our hippocampus. Yeah, hippocampus.
That's
Yeah,
right. Stimulate the hippocampus. Very
yeah,
good.
which is learning and memorizing by just eating healthy food, healthy snack, and avoid some stuff. For me, it's caffeine because every time when I start study, I just I just like relate to the coffee. I'm not like a coffee uh, lover, but it's just with the study. But now I will avoid it. And the last
Yeah.
thing is Pomodoro technique, which is awesome.
The Pomodoro technique. Very good. That is a great recap. I think she did a great job on that recap. What do you all think? That was great.
Thank you.
So, okay, so now let's go ahead and share my screen again. And what we talked about, so that was all a part of what we do with pre-test anxiety. That's even before the test has happened or anything like that. Now we're going to be looking at the present, okay, the present. And Dr. Rita, tell us what we experience. What type of anxiety can someone experience during the present?
You mean the test day, right?
Correct, exactly. So people can have anxiety on the test day. What type of anxiety could someone have, or why would they have anxiety on the test day?
For me, I cannot focus. I don't remember all the stuff. So, and yeah, like heart rate is going up, and yeah.
Right. So all those things we talked about kind of with the pre, the increase the heart rate, the digestive, all of that happens on test day as well.
Yes.
Gotcha. Good. Thank you. Very good. So what we're going to be looking at now is, okay, we've already talked about how can we handle the stress or the anxiety before the test, right? How to help us better focus on the study material. Now what we're going to be looking at is the actual test date. So if you have what we call the present test anxiety, which affects your test day, that can affect your recall, meaning that you get to the test, you know you've studied the information, you've done all the techniques to remember the information. You get to the test date and all of a sudden you get nervous. You get nervous and you see a question and you know that question. You've seen it a million times, but for some reason you cannot recall the answer. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
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 And so this is one of the very common things that you see on test day. Now, you can also have present test date anxiety that affects your focus, meaning that, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but you're going through the exam and it's almost like it's an out-of-body experience. It's like you're reading the questions, but you're not really reading the questions. It's like you see the words, but it's like you have to read them 2 or 3 times before you understand it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so again, that is one of those things that that's happening typically because of the anxiousness, right? And guess what? It can affect your mood. Do you know, I have seen dentists, I don't care, dentists, people at every kind of level, doctorate, college level, they will go into a test and I'll see them go on a break. They'll come out in their break and they're in tears. I have seen this in person where they're actually in tears because of it's affecting their mood, because they're feeling like, why am I not getting these questions? And I know the answer, right? I know I've seen it, but I just can't remember it. So let's talk about that. How in the world what are some of the techniques that you use to relax on test day? Who has some techniques that they use? Anyone?
I'm just always say to myself, like, God is in control. He's the one who control me. That's make me relax.
I love that. Okay, good. So you basically say to yourself, hey, you know what? I've done all I can do. There is, God that is going to guide me through this. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. All right. Anybody else have anything that they use on test day? Okay. All right. Well, let's look at a few things, okay? And these are just some suggestions that I would recommend. All right. So the very first thing, and I love what you said, is that you've got to understand that once you've done all that you can do, the information is in your brain. It is there, right? But you have to have what we call a coping plan for the test before you enter the test. A lot of times when we get anxious during the test, on test date, is because we don't have a plan. Does that make sense? So what you're going to want to set up is a plan for testing. Does anybody right now have a plan for testing? Like a plan? Some people call it a ritual, a plan, but some type of something that you have in place that says, okay, this is how my test date is going to go. When I enter the test, this is what I'm going to do. When I see a question, this is how I'm going to approach it. Does everybody have a plan?
Yeah, I just learned from your course like elimination. But yeah, but my problem, because I'm being too anxious, I don't even use it. It's so good plan, but I don't even use it because I'm being so anxious.
I know. You know what? That is so common. Look, I've heard, and I know. Let me give you a little story. So I don't know if most of you know my history, but before I went to medical school, I was a police officer. If anybody have ever researched me and looked me up online, but I was a police officer before I went to medical school. And so I spent some years as a police officer, and that's pretty dangerous, right? And so one of the things in the police academy, as they're training us as police officers, we have to go through all these different trainings where you have to learn how to drive a car in a high-speed chase. You have to learn how to shoot a gun at night under stressful conditions. So they do all this training, right? And the reason that they do this training is because if you're ever in that situation, they want you to be able to handle the situation in an appropriate way. Well, just kind of like you mentioned, if those situations happen and you are stressed, then guess what happens? You may forget about, if the car is going this way, I need to turn the opposite way. Or if I hear bullets flying this way, I need to know that it's going those directions. You may forget those things, right?
Yes.
Does that make sense? So one of the things that I will tell you that helps with that is repetition. So we would do trainings on a weekly basis. We did them so much that they became a habit. Whenever you train and your training becomes a habit, then whenever you're stressed, you're going to revert to doing what you habitually do. So think about what I just said. If you normally get nervous and you forget the information, then when you get to the test, you're going to forget it. But if you start practicing the habit, the techniques that you learn in our MDI prep class, if you use those techniques all the time, then they're going to become a habit. When they become a habit, when you get to the test, you're going to use them because it's part of your habit now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely,
Yes.
doctor. Yeah.
So that's what I would recommend, is just make it a habit. So going back to what I was talking about, the very first thing you gotta have when you get to that test is a plan. What is my plan? All right, give me an example. Plan A. Plan A is you get to the test and you may say, I'm going to eat a little brain food before the test. I may eat some pumpkin seeds or whatever. This is just an example, okay? I eat some brain food before the test. All right, I go into the exam. All right, when I get into the exam, I am going to take a 5-minute, I'm not saying 5 minutes, I'm sorry, a 5-second breather or relaxation period. Now, people may say, oh, wow, well, why are you doing that? Well, that may be your way of finding your center, okay? Your next plan would be, okay, if I see a question that I don't know, I won't get stressed. I'll just find another question that I do know. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. And then that's what you want to set up. Now, if you've never set up a plan for your test, then you need to set that up. If you want to set it up, email me a copy of what you propose as a plan for your test. Let me look at it. I'll tell you what I think about it. Okay. Everybody follow me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Now, so going back to what we said, we know with the pre-test anxiety, how we're going to handle that. The present test anxiety is best handled, let me repeat this, is best handled by three things. All right? Let me write those three things for you. Okay. The three things that you need to handle present test anxiety is number one, a plan. Everybody got that? Okay. All right. Number two, and I say this in a way that if you have some type of spiritual connection, or you have some type of a way that you center yourself, whether it be meditation or whatever, have some type of plan, then have some type of spiritual backdrop. And let me tell you what I mean by that. A lot of times when we've done all we can do, we get comfort in knowing that there is a higher power, that there is something that's going to guide our steps. And here's what I want you to understand, is that whatever you focus on, whatever you believe, that will be manifested. Okay? It will come true if you believe it and you put in the effort behind it. So let me say that again. This is important. A lot of times people say, well, I'm going to believe God is going to help me pass this test, right? But you haven't studied. Do you think that works?
No, I have to work for it.
You got to put some effort in, right? Now, but here's the other piece to that. The other piece that's really big in this and understanding of this is that what you have up here in this brain, what you see, what you visualize is what you've got to believe to be manifested. So I tell, and most of you who know me, you've been in my classes, I'll tell you all the time, think past. You always say that, right? Think about the word past, P-A-S-S. Visualize that word. When you visualize that word past, it's almost like a comfort food. So when you get to the test, you're looking at these questions, and you may see a question you don't know, but your brain is still so focused on past that that's what your energy is going to go towards, passing the exam. So that means that you're going to start seeing questions that you know. You're going to say, oh, I know this one, and it's going to get you excited. So during the test, have a plan. If you have some type of spiritual connection, tap into that spiritual connection. The third thing, all right, is to, and this is going to sound so simple. It's going to sound so simple, and you're going to say to yourself, well, how can I do this? Relax. Relax. And what I mean by relax is this. Whenever you take this exam, most people are stressed during the exam because they think about the importance of the exam. If I don't pass this exam, I won't get my dental license. If I don't get my dental license, I won't be able to practice. If I don't practice, I won't be able to make the money I need to make, right? So people think about these things. The question, though, is they're focusing on all these things that are not even present. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
It hadn't happened. It's not even a reality. Because right now, the only thing when you're taking the test is the test. There's nothing else going on. All you have in front of you is that exam. You have no idea what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
So relax. Now, I had a student who had serious test anxiety during the test. Now, you think, let me just tell you this. She would sometimes go into these, what we call mini coma states, where she would kind of like black out. And she'd be out for a few minutes. And when she kind of come back to her senses, minutes have passed by on the test. And now her anxiety level has gotten even higher. This is an actual true story. And she had this problem. She's a medical doctor now. She's finished her exam. She did everything. But I remember when she came to me, she was like, I don't know how I'll ever be able to get my license because I can't pass this exam. And because I keep literally having these little blackout moments where I can't remember what happened in the last few minutes. So this is what I told her to do. I said, just like I was telling her about the schedule, you break everything up in little pieces, right? I told her to do the same thing. I said, okay, you have 7 blocks of questions. She had 7 blocks of questions. I said, in these 7 blocks, don't look at them as 7 blocks because that's too much for you. You need to break those blocks up even more. Break them up into questions of 10 in your brain. I said, so all you're trying to do is 10 questions. You do 10 questions. When you do those 10 questions, you take a 10-second mental break. Oh, she said, no way, Dr. Sutton. There's no way I can do that. Because if I take a 10-second break, I won't finish the test. I said, trust me. You've been taking 2 to 3 minute blackouts. 10 seconds is not going to hurt you. Everybody follow where I'm coming from? So, so I told her, take these 10-second just mental breaks. And in those 10 seconds, what you do in those 10 seconds, already have in mind a place that you love to go. That is your favorite place that you love to go. It could be a beach, it could be wherever. In those 10 seconds, I want you to visualize for those 10 seconds that place. Soon as you get that place there, soon as you see the place, go back to work. Do your next 10 questions. Do that for every 10 questions. That helped her tremendously relax during the exam. Because not only did she finish the exam, she did well on the exam, and now she's practicing. But sometimes you may have to do that to break up the test. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Now, how do you become comfortable with that? If you try to do that on the test day, you're going to be so nervous because you've never tried that before, right? You're going to be like, I can't do this. So what do? How do you handle that? What should you do now?
Make it a habit, like you just practice it.
Repetition, make it a habit. So whenever you start, like with your dental mastery app or whatever question bank that you're using, set up a block of questions, right? You may set up like 25 questions, and you may break them up in blocks of 10. Practice it now. Get this into a habit and start doing your 10-second, okay, what's my 10-second visualization? Where am I going right now? 10 seconds is over, go back, okay? Practice now. It'll make it so much easier during the test, okay? So, is everybody comfortable on how to handle anxiety during the test? Everybody good? Okay, perfect. Now, after the test, you know what? You might say, well, I don't have any anxiety after the test because the test is over. Well, that's true, but do you know some people after the test is over, they are consumed with their thoughts. They're trying to figure out, did I get that question right? The first thing they do, they run out to their car, they get their Mosby book or some other book, and they start going through the book to see if they got the questions right. Now, I know none of you do that, right?
I'm always doing it.
I know. So a lot of people
do it too.
What'd you say?
I also have the practice of like rechecking the answers. So
Yes. And so guess what? Let me ask you a question. If you recheck those answers, is it going to change that test score?
No.
It's not going to do anything.
It just make me down.
It makes you doubt. And then guess what it also does? It gives you a certain level. If you see a question and you go through the book and you're like, oh my goodness, I missed that one. It's going to raise that anxiety up a little bit, right? because now
Yeah.
you're worried if you actually pass the test or not. And so now this waiting period for you to get your test back, you're going to be having this level of anxiety that is higher than it should be. Give you an example. I had a student, this was about 5 years ago, and she came to my office. She had done our program, and she came to my office and she was in tears. She was crying. And I asked her, I said, what's wrong? She said, well, I took my exam. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, how close did you come to passing? And because obviously I assumed she didn't pass. And she said, well, I haven't got my score back yet. I said, what are you crying for? She said, well, I just know I failed. I just feel so bad. I won't be able to, if I don't pass this exam, I won't get my license. And if I don't get my license, I won't, be able to help my family. And she's doing all this crying. And I finally told her, I said, relax, breathe and relax. I said, the first question I have for you is this. You have no idea your score. You don't know if you passed or you failed. I said, I will make a deal with you. If you will relax for the next 3 weeks until your score comes back, if your score comes back and you didn't pass, you and I can cry together. But until then, we're both going to be happy. So she kind of laughed at me, left the office. And I guess it kind of helped her relax a little bit because she knew, there's nothing she could do about it. And so her score comes back and she passed. And she was so excited that she passed. And I told her, I said, think about this. If you would have been stressed for the last 3 weeks, you have wasted 3 weeks of your life stressing over something that never happened. Does everybody understand what I mean by that?
Yes, doctor.
Sure.
Yeah. So here's the thing. This is what I always tell people. Whenever you take an exam, unless you intentionally put the wrong answer on there, and hear what I just said, intentionally, you made a deliberate attempt to write the wrong answer. Unless you did that, you have no idea if you got the answer right or wrong, correct? So by the time you finish the exam, you actually should feel like you got all the questions right because you've answered it the best way you could. So that should give you a certain level of confidence to say, you know what? I answered it the best way I could. There's no need for me to recheck it because I put my answer in there. And all you do now is just wait. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. Do not say, oh, Dr. Sutton said this is true. But I believe, this is my own personal belief. I believe if your energy is positive and it's thinking in a positive way, and you're thinking, I've done well and I'll be okay on this exam, and you're unwavering in that thought, I believe you have better outcomes. I believe that if you think negatively, and you speak it and you say, I know I failed that exam. Oh my goodness, I know I failed that exam. Then I guess what happens? You will probably end up failing. But if you say, you know what, I feel pretty good about that exam. I knew a lot of information. Talk about the positive. Stay away from the negative. Okay? That is what you do post-test. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now, silence meditation. All right, meditation, silence. That's important. Believe it or not, when I tell you about focusing on pass, what did I say? Pass. P-A-S-S. You've heard me say it quite a bit throughout this workshop. Pass. Because I want you to visualize pass. Now, I have a rule. Here's my rule. It's called the 90-10% rule. 90%, 10%. What does this rule mean? Well, most people, when they study 90% of the information, their test anxiety level goes down to about 10%. When they study 10% of the information, their test anxiety level jumps up to about 90%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It
So-
makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but guess what? That's not Dr. Sutton's rule. That is not my rule. Guess what my rule is? My rule is if you study 90%, your test anxiety should be 0. Wait a minute. If you study 10%, your test anxiety should be 0. What does that mean? Who can tell me what that means to them? My rule.
feel comfortable in any case.
There you go. Thank you, Dr. Edward. That's right. You know what? Anxiety is only going to reduce your chances of performing well. So I don't care if I studied 10% of the information. I may have only studied 10% of the prosthodontics. But when I get to the prosthodontic section, my anxiety is still going to be zero because I'm already going to have a plan. I already know what I'm going to do during the test, and I'm going to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Perfect. So here's a few things I want to just point out to you. And of course, you know, if you're in the class, we already do test taking techniques and things like that. And I think I'm going to do another workshop just on test taking techniques on how to answer particular questions using the techniques. And you remember, it's all about the habit. The more you practice the techniques, when you get nervous, you're not going to deviate from it. Okay? So here's some rules. Never eliminate an answer you have no clue about. You probably heard me say that in class, right? Never, ever eliminate an answer you have no clue about on the test. Second thing, if the first question, if you start your INBDE exam or your test exam and the first question you see gives you a 10 out of 10 on the pain scale, meaning I have no idea what this question is asking me. It is very uncomfortable. And I feel like it's kind of starting to raise my anxiety level just a little bit. If that happens, if that first question is that level of pain, you go find a friendlier question. That means go to question number 2. See if that one's easier. If that one easier, it's going to build your confidence up. You always want to, now you put something in that first question box, but you go to an easier question. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Okay, good. That will do tremendously in helping you with the test anxiety during the test, okay? The next thing, only read words in multiple choice questions that you're familiar with. If there's a word in the question that you don't know, don't try to figure it out during the test, because that's just going to raise your anxiety level because you're going to think, I don't know what this word means. It doesn't matter. Just eliminate it. Don't worry about it. Use the words that they give you that you do understand and try to make the question make sense from that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Never leave anything blank when you're not penalized for wrong answers. Let me say that again. Since you're not penalized for those wrong answers, make sure you never leave a blank. I've actually seen this. Some people have skipped around on the IMBDE test, on the exam, and they may forget to put something in that blank. And then remember later, God, I forgot to put something. Always put something in the boxes, okay? And here's what I told you before. Always have a plan before you enter the test. Always have a plan, okay? Now, if you look at this box right here, okay, can everybody see this box? I want you to take about a minute or two, and I want you to give me the answer to this question.
It's option C, I believe.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Edwards says C. All right, you all have about 45 seconds.
Option B.
B as in boy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, got you.
C.
All right, we got another C. You got, all right, 30 seconds. Okay. 10, 9, 8,
Maybe C.
6, 1. Okay, nice. All right, perfect. Okay. Now, let me ask you all a question. When you remember I was telling you about the pain scale, right? On a pain scale, what would you have given this on a pain scale out of 10?
A 10.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, me too.
All
I
right.
do too.
You said a 2 out of 10? Wow.
Yep.
Oh, wow. So this wasn't too painful for you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So some people said 10 out of 10. Okay. So let me ask you, if you were in the test and you came to this, and this was your very first question on the exam, very first question, would this raise your anxiety a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But here's the beauty. The beauty of it is you've attended Dr. Sutton's test anxiety workshop, right?
Believe it or not, I don't experience some anxiety in the test day.
Uh-huh. Okay, good. Good. So you said you don't experience any.
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, but for those who do, now you have a plan. Now, what would if this was your very first question, what would Dr. Sutton say? What would he say do?
Oh,
Go to friendly question.
Go to okay. Now, would you leave this question blank?
No, I have to put a choice and then go
Okay,
to
good. Good. So you would put a choice and then you would go to question number 2, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Perfect. Very good. And then you would try to find a friendlier question, right? So now, just by knowing that you can do that, does that make you feel more comfortable?
Yes.
Yes. And guess what? If you miss one question, 2 questions, 10 questions, can you still pass the exam?
Yes.
Yeah. So if I skip this question, I'm not nervous, am I? Because I'm just going to find another question that I do know. And my goal is to get as many questions right as possible. Does that make sense? So that's what I want you to remember. Whenever you get to that exam, don't freak out. Don't get upset. Don't worry about this question. It's one, you may not know it, but that's okay, because you're going to go to the next question. And you might say, oh, question number 2. I don't know this one either. Don't get nervous. All right. Just find a friendly question. When you do, your confidence will go up. And it may actually help you to remember something else that you may have forgotten about the other question. So let me just say, just for this one, some of you are probably wondering what the answer is. I know you are, aren't you? Am I right? The answer is D. The answer is D. Now you may say, well, how in the world is this? I'll explain this one, even though this is not a genetics class. But this is a question that you will see on the INBDE exam, but I'll explain it to you. So in this question, it says that the patient's father is unaffected and the mother is a carrier, right? And what they want to know, the question is, what is the incidence, right, or likelihood of siblings, let me circle this, not being phenotypically affected? Okay? So let me show you how you would approach this. In order to answer this question, you need to first know what type of genetics are we looking at? What type of genetics? Here, if you read this, it says that the patient is called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, an X-linked recessive disorder. See, that's important. X-linked means sex-linked. Sex-linked means that it's on the X or the X and the Y, the chromosomes. So for a man, the dad is what are gene is alleles, XY, right? His chromosomes are XY. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
yes, sir.
That's the dad. The mom is going to be what? XX. All right. Does everybody follow me there?
Yep.
Okay. Anytime they use the word recessive, in order for a recessive disease to be present, it must have two of the affected alleles. So two things have to be affected. So it might be, we call little r, or something like that, okay? That's affected. It has to have two of the same in order to have it. Two of the same small alleles, okay? In this case, what do they say about the dad? The dad is what?
Unaffected.
He's unaffected, right? The mother is a what?
Carrier.
But she's not affected, though, is she? So a
No.
carrier means, I'm gonna put a little a here. A means affected. So that means the mom only has one little a because she's a carrier. If she had two A's, that means she would have the disease.
Affected.
Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, this thing right here is called a Punnett square. So let's do this Punnett square. So here's the first child. It's going to be XX. The first child is XX with a little a. Is this child number one? I'm put child number one. Does this child number one have the disease? Is the child affected?
A
Yes.
carrier.
Is a carrier, but are they affected?
No.
Good. So no for that one. The next child is that going to be a boy? This is going to be a boy, right?
Yeah.
Child number two. Is he affected?
Yes.
He is. That's right. Because it's on his X chromosome. And if it's a
Sorry
if it's
to cut you off,
yes.
Doctor. I'm very, very sorry. Would you jump back to the first kid? I didn't quite catch why didn't it effective.
Good. Perfect. So the condition is an X-linked recessive disorder. X-linked. So look at what the disorder is. X-linked recessive. Recessive means you have to have two copies on your X, right? So for a female to be affected, she has to have two A's because it's recessive. Okay, you have to have all of the X's have to have an A on them. So a female with one A is not affected. She's just a carrier. Okay. Now a male, how many X's does he have?
One.
One. So if a male has an A, is he affected?
He is.
He is, because he only has one X. And so if that one X has an A, then he's affected because he doesn't have another X. But for a female to have an X-linked condition, both of her X-linked, if it's a recessive, both of her X's have to have the affected allele. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So the boy here, I'm gonna put a little circle around here. He's affected, right? Okay, good. He's affected. Now let's go to the next child. The next child is going to be XX. Do they have any A's?
No.
No.
Good. Okay. The next boy is going to be XY. Does he have any A's?
No.
No.
Good. So how many of the kids have an A?
One.
Just one.
One out of what?
All four.
4.
Good. So 1 out of 4. So how many of them will not be affected?
75%. Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Now, of course, this is a test anxiety workshop. We just went over a genetics question. The reason that I did that and went over that question is because I wanted you to see something. One, yes, I want you to understand how to answer that question on the exam, but I also want you to understand too is your comfort level with this question just went up, didn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So if you saw a question like this on the test, then your anxiety level is going to be lower, right?
Yes.
But
Mhm.
according to Dr. Sutt's rule, is your anxiety going to be low regardless if you know the information or not? Does that make sense? But it comes with practice. Habit, habit, habit. Okay? So, all right. I really hope that was beneficial to everyone. I hope that was beneficial. I think, again, the next thing I plan to do a workshop on testing, test questions, things like that, how to approach the questions. But was this beneficial in terms of helping you to understand different ways to handle the test anxiety?
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, 100%.
It definitely was.
Yes. Doctor.
Good, good, good. Perfect. Now, if you do me a favor, please spread this to others. Let people know what we're doing here at MBI Prep, because that's the way we keep the lights on. We keep more good people like you coming in. We really want, because so many people are out there struggling with the test anxiety and they don't know why they're not passing, and they don't understand it. And they're thinking, I know all my information, but I'm not passing. All right. There are simple techniques. Now, the good thing about it is everybody in here today is going to pass the exam. I know it. I know you're going to pass because you're going to put a plan together. You're going to be able to study and focus. You're going to have a schedule that you can basically do without being too stressed about it. When you take your test, after you finish, you're not going to worry about it. You're not going to worry about it because you know you've done the best you could do. And at the end, you're going to be successful, and we're all going to celebrate your success. Okay? So I enjoyed this Saturday morning with you all. If there's any questions or anything like that, feel free to let me know. And don't forget, send me a copy of the plan you have for testing. All right. Are there any questions?
No, thank you, doctor.
Could I ask you a personal question, doctor, please?
Yes.
Doctor, teach me, please, how should I feel right now? Because I feel sad. I know for sure my knowledge is bigger than the score I got today, and I really feel sad.
I got you. You're talking about based on the quiz that you did today, the class marker?
Yes, yeah.
I know exactly. Yeah, I got you. And so you got to look at it like this. First of all, don't feel bad. If you ask most people in the group today how they felt about that quick quiz, they're probably going to have similar feelings, that they didn't feel real happy with the outcome. But here's the thing you got to look at, is you got to say to yourself, your test is not today. You are preparing for your exam. And when you're preparing for your exam, it's a period. It's a trial period. It's like, okay, I'm going to get better. I got some questions right. I missed some questions. But each time I keep moving, every day that I keep studying, I'm going to learn more. And let me tell you the best way. The best way to not feel sad is to talk to your previous self. Let me say this again. If you have a conversation with your previous self, the self that started the course 3 months ago, or whenever you started the course, right? Talk to that person and ask them, do they know more than you know now? What would you think the answer would be?
I talk to this person every day, doctor.
And who knows more? Do you think Dr. Edward on day 1 knows more than Dr. Edward on day 90? Do you think?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. That's what you are saying. Yeah, absolutely. I'm full of positive energy. Yeah.
Good. Perfect. So guess what that means? That means that whatever happened today, Dr. Edward tomorrow is going to know more than Dr. Edward today. And you're going to keep moving that direction. And that's what gives you the excitement, the motivation to know you're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Thank you for this positive inspiration.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, doctor. I want to thank you for this class. And I want to ask about a Dental Mastery app. We will have the access when we schedule our exam?
Yes, 3 months prior to your exam is when we want you to access it.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you all enjoy the rest of your stress-free day. That's what I call it. Enjoy the rest of your stress-free day. Have fun. Do whatever you want to do. If that's studying, study. If it's not, don't. But again, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all again.
Have a beautiful day, you all.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Happy
All
day.
right.
Have a good day.